Like I probably was close to burnout way more times than I think is necessary or even healthy. So I think the advice I probably would say to my younger self is like, it's all going to work out. Like it's all going to work out and it's going to happen. You don't have to stress so much about this and have faith in yourself and like what you can do and how you show up. Because I honestly, and this is something my old boss told me, she's like, Kailee, you could do 60% of what you do right now and you would still be the best. And that hit really hard because I was getting in my own way. I was pushing myself too much. I was like overdoing it. And my career and my longevity in my career is going to shrink so much if I'm going to push myself that hard. So if I can just don't let perfect be the enemy of good and just do a good job and show up. That's a lesson I had to learn really quick. Then I can actually probably end up doing more for a lot longer because I have that energy to put behind it.
Hey everybody, what is up? My name is Austin Heisler and I'm a van lifer, entrepreneur. I own a social media agency and I travel the country while running my business. And this is your Creative Roadmap episode number 4. In this episode, I am talking to my cousin Kailee, who is the Associate Manager of Analytics and Insights, and she works for Danone North America. Yes, she works with yogurt, but she also works with lots of analytics, numbers, and she gets to be creative at the same time. So if you're a young creative, you love numbers, reports, and analytics, but you also love getting to be creative, this is the podcast for you. I hope you enjoy the conversation. Let's jump into it. I am here with my cousin, Kailee, who is a very successful marketer in Denver, Colorado. So, Kailee, usually to get these podcasts started off, I like to do a little bit of an icebreaker.
Okay.
And, our family is big music people. So tell the audience, what are you listening to right now on your Apple or Spotify?
Yeah, so I'm a Spotify user. I actually have been listening to repeat the Olivia Rodrigo album, Guts, that just came out. So that's been really, really fun. She's kind of reminiscing like the whole like kind of punk rock but poppy like vibe. And even though she's much younger than me, I'm loving it. I'm loving it.
Yeah. No, she's definitely great. And then if you were to open your phone right now and look at the last song that you listened to, what was it?
Terracotta Canyon by Lady, which is 2 women local in Colorado and Boulder. Very folky, very like soft violin and guitar acoustic. It's a very good song.
Oh yeah, is that the artist you told me about on the way to the lake house when you guys were in town? Yeah, no. You'll have to send me. I haven't checked them out yet, but I would definitely be interested in listening to that.
Okay, perfect. I will be sure to send that to you.
Yeah, cool. So, to get us started, like, kind of give us a rundown on what you do for the company you work for.
Yeah, so currently my title is Associate Manager of Analytics and Insights at Danone North America, and I work in the yogurt department. So what I do for them, because that's a mouthful, is essentially I'm looking at a bunch of grocery store data every day, as well as our own primary research into products and trying to assess and understand how products are doing, how they're performing, their sales, as well as coming up with long-term strategies to help the marketing team to help grow those sales ultimately at the end of the day. So what new products we need, what the packaging should look like, what stores we should be in, who we should be going after, what kind of communications we should be saying in advertisement as well as on the pack itself. So it could be a different thing every day, but at the end of the day, my job is to help people sell more yogurt.
No, that's great. So it sounds like very analytical based, lots of reporting, lots of numbers. Is that something that you've always been interested in?
No, but it is all those things. It for sure is. I actually was super interested in becoming a doctor when I was in high school and in early college. And I've always been good at numbers. I was just great at math. That stuff never scared me, but I never honestly thought that I was going to have a career that dealt so much with numbers and analytics.
Mm-hmm. And um, when you're dealing with all these, how does creativity like play into what you do right now?
So we love to say that analytics and insights is art and science because a lot of the time, of course, you have to know how to run a survey or know how to run a focus group, which is more the science part of it, making sure everything is consistent and equal and that you're asking the right questions. But the art part of it or the creative side of it is really learning how to read between the lines and get what people are actually trying to say and what people truly want. Because, you can see a certain product is selling like crazy, but you have to have that insight and that kind of gut feeling to know what that true reason is. And also to know when to go against the data. Because sometimes people don't know what they actually want. So you can get really creative. Just to take, for example, we had a collaboration with a cereal company a couple years ago for one of our coffee creamers. So it was like the cereal coffee creamer line, and all of our higher ups were like, that's gross. Why would anyone ever drink that? That's disgusting. Like that's not gonna sell well. And as a marketer on the creative side, we were just like, no, people are going to go crazy for this. It's weird, but it's because it's weird that people will want to buy it. And so the creative piece is really just knowing when to not necessarily listen to the data and just go with something different and new and exciting, and just believe in what you want to put out there.
Yeah. So it sounds like you've created that gut feeling over time to be able to know when to take that risk,
Yeah.
or to go against the data. So how did you get to the point where you are now when you have built that gut feeling? Because I can imagine it doesn't just come naturally. You have to kind of work your way to get there.
Absolutely. I think it's a lot of learning as you go and failing. I've heard many times, I think the phrase is like, fail often and fail quick, because the sooner you fail, the quicker you can rebound and the quicker you can learn. And obviously, with my company, we're dealing with billions of dollars, so you can't necessarily always fail. So that's why it's good to do it early in your career when you don't have as much big stakes going on, right? They're smaller projects, smaller budgets, and you just kind of learn to build that gut with those failures, as well as just, knowing who your core customer is, like always, always, always anchoring and knowing that person. If you know that person or that demographic like the back of your hand, like your gut is going to lead you in the right way. You're like, these people like this, and I know they like this, and I'm going to build a product that speaks to them. But if you don't know your customer, then you're more likely to get that wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. And what do you guys do to figure out who that customer is?
So we do a lot of different tests. There are more quantitative or data numbers forward tests that we can pull. So that's just literally looking into grocery store data, and the demographics that people provide us, telling us things like where they're from, how much money they earn, very, very basic demographic things, right? So those things a lot of companies have access to in some shape or form. But then the other part is honestly getting in front of people with the product and talking to them and learning about them and seeing who likes this and who doesn't like this, and getting more into like the nuance of people. Is this person really environmentally conscious? Is this person, a mom and like stressed and needs something quick and easy? So just kind of putting a face behind the numbers that we see. And we do that through mostly focus groups, like talking to people, actually talking to them. But also sometimes just hearing from people through reviews, social listening, if you know what that tool is, where you can use a computer to mine the internet to see how they're talking about your product. So there's lots of different fun ways that you can do that, but I always think the best way is like face to face with an actual human.
Yeah, absolutely. Face to face is so important.
Mm-hmm.
So when you are dealing with all of these statistics and things like that, do you ever like get like a sense of like burnout or just things like that from looking at all this data all the time? And when you do, what are some things you do to like get away from that, to get recreative, to kind of spark those ideas and passions again?
Yeah, we call it data fatigue. So it's definitely a real thing. I probably, to be honest, probably feel it less than some of my other, colleagues do. And I think it's because I actually end up I love numbers at the end of the day. But they can get overwhelming because like, you can take data so far. Like you can dig into anything over and over and over again. You can slice and dice data a different way. You can find a new lens to look at something. Like it just goes on and on. So the message I tell myself to prevent that burnout is don't let perfect be the enemy of good. Like if you feel like the data gave you a good enough answer, run with it. And again, then fail and fail quickly. Because if you're just searching until you get the perfect answer, you're probably missing out and on sales or the consumer, right? If you don't do that new yogurt with that new innovation, your competitor's going to do it before you do. So you might as well just look at the data and say, this is my gut, this is what I think, I want to make a decision, and I'm going to go for it. So I tend to be, I would say, a little bit quicker than some of my colleagues in that, and not need everything to be supported by data. But I think that's what's allowed me not to get worn down by that, because you could. It's so easy. We've all been there. And just reminding myself that like I can do a good enough job with what I know instead of having to perfect it.
Yeah, go for it. I love that. It's all part of the journey, right? Sometimes you never know when the data is going to be good, or in marketing, there's so much risk. And sometimes you're never going to know if that risk is going to pay off if you don't go for it. In my last podcast, I just talked to a video marketer who said you can plan yourself out of action. If you keep on planning and planning and thinking, you're never going to take that action. And I thought that was so wise.
Yeah.
But going back to the beginning of your journey, you said you wanted to be a doctor. And then now you're in marketing, doing all this customer analysis and this creative work. Like, what made that transition for you? Like, how did that whole process play out?
It was a journey. Like most people, I would say, it's not a straight and narrow path as we might think it is, especially when we're younger. I wanted to help people. I wanted to do something impactful. And I was always really smart. I hope that doesn't sound too conceited, but it's like, oh, of course, I'd get great grades. I'm going to a good school. I'm going to be a doctor. Like that's what you do. And then when I was in college, I just started to quickly learn what kind of commitment being a doctor would mean and how much time and effort that would take. And not that I couldn't do it, but by the time I was graduating, I was so tired. I'd been in school for so long, and I really was just struggling, honestly, of like knowing where to go. But my university had a minor in technology and arts media, and my degree, for context, was in biology. So this minor, which I had time to do, luckily in my last year, literally just my last year, was all about HTML, CSS, web design, basic advertising, basic graphic design, all of that stuff. And I was like, well, this is cool. I've always been pretty good at art, painting and other things. And I was like, maybe this is a way I can, connect the dots. And I thought graphic design would kind of be the way that I would do it. But ultimately, through a career fair, I got introduced to a advertising agency that's since been acquired. It doesn't exist anymore. But I ended up working for them for 6 years. And in my introductions with them, they basically were like, we don't care what your degree is in. We just care that you can think, basically, and that you can make decisions. You're a critical thinker. You can look at data and assess it and know what to do with it, make decisions, all the things that we've been talking about. And they really took a risk on me and hired me and put me through about a year's worth of training into digital advertising, specifically search engine marketing. So anything on Google or Bing, those ads that you see there. And then I started my job and I started my career. And so I kind of was just like, to any company, like, catch me. I don't know what I'm doing. Just let me in, give me a job, pay me. I need money. And I was just so fortunate that I found the company that I did and that they saw something in me.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you first started doing this graphic design thing, like how was that? Like, what were some of like the first projects that you worked on, and what about it excited you a little bit to be like, I could do this, I could make a career out of this?
Interestingly, going back to music, it wasn't a graphic design project. I was in a computer music as sound like class. And it was basically DJing, like glorified DJing. But what it was is we had to create songs, and I don't have any musical skills, in my opinion. I can't play an instrument and I can't sing, but I can keep a beat. And so one of the projects that my professor had us do was we had to create a video and then make the score for it. And it was only like a 3-minute video. But essentially, I created this time-lapse video of me putting on my makeup in the morning, but it was actually supposed to be this way of signifying like how women like put on a mask and cover themselves to like face the world. So it was more of this like feminine like message. And I got to make music to go along with it. And I got to like add some of my illustration into the video. I can't find that video. It doesn't exist anymore. I swear, it's too embarrassing to show anyway. But that process got me out of my head. And that process made me feel alive. I got that, that like focus, that drive. Some creatives talk about like there's just that moment where you tunnel in and like the world escapes and you are just there and nothing else matters. And like that was the first time I had ever experienced that. And again, I don't even think it was that great of a video or great of a song, but it got me out of my head. And I was like, wow, if I could do something like this every day where I felt challenged, where I felt like my mind was getting churned and I was doing something really cool, like that would be enough for me. And so that was just kind of this like eye-opening thing that like I didn't have to be a doctor or a lawyer or fill in a blank. Like I could do something really unique and interesting and new.
I totally know that feeling that you're talking about. When you just get so plugged in to a project. There's some days that I could get so plugged into a project and I don't even eat lunch. I could go the whole day without eating just because I'm so focused on what I'm doing in it. It's almost kind of crazy how it fulfills you, like literally physically. You're like, you don't feel hungry, you don't feel thirsty, you're just cranking away. You're in the zone.
Yeah.
I love that. So what would some resources you would say, you went to a job fair and you found this job.
Yeah.
But for somebody who wants to do what you do, like what are some resources or places that you would give to some young, let's say like high school or college age students? Like where would they be able to find a job like yours or do graphic design or things like that?
Yeah. If they want to go to market research, which is what I'm ultimately in now, I hate to say it, but a business degree really is at the end of the day going to be the way that like opens the door for you. It's not the only way to get there. I'm proof that that's the case, but it helps a lot. It does help you, open the doors and get the recruiters to talk to you and whatever that may be. But I would say in that instance, the best advice I've ever gotten and still love to this day is follow your passion and use that as a way to get recruited. Because you and 20 other people all have the same skill set, right? Then you're all applying to this job. Let's say it's my job, right? But when you interview, what you bring to the table is how you're different and how you show up to the world. So I like art, like we talked about, like graphic design. I love painting. That's something I can talk about in my interviews and talk about how that gets me thinking about the consumer in a new way, that I'm on different TikToks and following different trends because I'm interested in art, which makes me more robust as a marketer because I'm able to talk to a different audience, right? So I can sell myself that way because I'm following my passion. So it helps to have the basic education, which I say is business, or in my case, a lot of analytics and statistics. But I still can bring in something that I really love and care about to set me apart and make me better at my job. You just have to know how to sell that. And then, and in that, like if there's something that you are passionate about, learn those skills. Whether that be like Udemy is a great platform where you can pay like $200 to do an online course completely self-paced on graphic design, for example. And you can learn that skill set. Or you can get a certification in coding. Like if you want to just learn how to code a website, like you can get that certification, which is much cheaper than a degree, right? Like the one I have. Because sometimes, not all people are able to go to school and pay for that. But you have to know how to sell yourself in that way. And by always anchoring yourself in your passion, you're going to keep coming back to that, and people are going to be attracted to that, and you're going to be able to really like push your message forward. I hope that answered your question.
It absolutely answered my question. Thank you so much, Kailee. And
yeah,
it's so cool to hear that your job encompasses like design and statistics, but also creativity.
Yeah.
You have to be creative and make decisions, and also be like a strategic thinker. Like there are people in the world that, like, for me, I'm a total art person. My brain is not thinking numbers in any kind of way, but I know there's people out there like yourself that love the best of both worlds, and
yes.
That is so cool. And can you just elaborate more on how you mix like the strategy and the reports, but also mix in your creativity and your strategic thinking at the same time in what you do?
Yeah. So I kind of feel a little bit like Willy Wonka in the best way because I get to dream up new products like every day. Now, are all of them going to land on grocery store shelves? No. And sometimes our food scientists will come back to me and be like, that's not possible. So, reality does set in, but the beauty of my role in particular is I get to dream big, and then someone gets to like taper me down. So in my day-to-day, we have so many different yogurt brands. I mean, we have everything from like Danimals to Light and Fit. So I get to dream up amazing, fun new flavors, for example. And I'd say like that's how I get to play creative. I personally love food. I love eating. I love trying new flavors. So it's basically my job to start to do research into what are the hot new flavors out there? Are there any international flavors that American palates have not been exposed to yet? Are there any that are like super polarizing that could sell really well, but also turn some people off? The example I like to use is matcha green tea. 10 years ago, if you would have talked to an American about matcha, they'd be like, A, what is matcha? And B, if they tasted it, they'd say it tastes like grass, right? But now it is a staple at coffee stores and coffee shops like around the United States. Like you can't go anywhere and then not have matcha. And there's even matcha flavored things like matcha tiramisu and matcha blah, 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 fill in the blank. So I get to be creative and find those things. I'm doing research. I can taste that stuff and go with their food scientists and then be like, this is it. I'm putting all my money. I'm betting on this one, and like even mango, right? Isn't that crazy to think about things that we eat every day and we love and we enjoy? Americans were not exposed to it. So I get to get super creative. And that's a very, very simple example, but it can go all the way to format. I don't have to limit myself. So, can I think of yogurt in a shot, like a drink shot format? What if it's a gummy, like a vitamin gummy? What if I wanted to have yogurt as pizza dough? I don't know, I'm just like spitballing. And again, that's how I get to be creative is I literally can just throw things at the wall and see what sticks. And it's my marketer's job and my food scientist's job to like reel me in and make sure it's realistic. But I get to play. I get to play with that. And I can just be like, let's not limit ourselves to yogurt in a cup. There's so much more that we could do.
I love that.
Yeah.
Just creating and being able to spitball and throw anything you want at the wall. How much fun is that? Like
It's so much
that
fun.
that sounds like such an incredible thing to be like, the world is your oyster. Like I could think of anything I want. I could go to any country, see what they're tasting, compare it to our statistics and see if it would work well.
Yeah.
In your current job that you're at right now, like what is your favorite like thing that you've had a part in or you played a part in that you're super proud of, or like one of your biggest accomplishments that you've had in your role right now?
Yes. That one's a little bit more simple. It's not as fun of an example, but I still really enjoy it. So I was able to have my internship with Danone while I was in my MBA graduate program. And during that time, I did a drinks portfolio project for them. Essentially, how are we going to incorporate yogurt drinks into each one of our yogurt brands? And we have 13 yogurt brands, so it's a lot. And one of the biggest gaps that I pointed out, and I'm biased in this, I was vegan for 3 years, but there's very little plant-based yogurt drinks. And of those drinks, the yogurt drinks that are plant-based, there's like very, very little nutritional benefits. When you take out dairy, you lose a lot. You lose a lot of calcium. You lose a lot of protein. You lose a lot of that good stuff that we love, dairy for. And as a former vegan, I always needed B12. I needed more protein. I needed iron. Like these are the things I'm missing in my diet because I don't eat animal-based products. And so one of the ideas that I proposed was a plant-based probiotic shot that included the essential vitamins that we need as a plant-based eater to function every day. It's not in market yet, but it is under development. But that was such a win for me. I was an intern and they heard my idea and they were like, oh my gosh, that seems so simple. Why haven't we already done that? And they're currently in development and making it work. And I hope it ends up on shelves. Stuff takes a really long time. It takes like years, like three years before stuff can get released. But the fact that I was able to make that impact as an intern and not even a full-time employee yet, it's just like this huge win for me. And it made me feel like they took me seriously and they really believed in what I was saying and my research and how I think.
Wow. Incredible. I will be looking for it on the shelf. If you'd like to let me know and I will give it a shot. I'm not even a vegan, but I will try it. I will try it. That's so cool. So it sounds like you've gotten so far and have some pretty huge accomplishments. And I know as your cousin that you've had a pretty long and extensive like school career. So when you are going through all these classes and looking back at yourself now to see all you've accomplished and that huge accomplishment that you just went over at your job, like if you were to give your younger self some motivation to like get going through those hard days at school or going through that internship and having these crazy ideas to now see them like fully like being like processed and like worked out, what would you tell your younger self to keep going knowing what you do now?
That's a good one. It's a tough one. It's a little bit of everything I've already kind of said to you. I personally suffer from perfectionism. Hands down, I know this about myself. I always wanted all the straight A's. I wanted to be the top of my class, get all the best internships, all those things. And I pushed myself really hard. Like I probably was close to burnout way more times than I think is necessary or even healthy. So I think the advice I probably would say to my younger self is like, it's all going to work out. Like it's all going to work out and it's going to happen. You don't have to stress so much about this and have faith in yourself and like what you can do and how you show up. Because I honestly, and this is something my old boss told me, she's like, Kailee, you could do 60% of what you do right now and you would still be the best. And that hit really hard because I was getting in my own way. I was pushing myself too much. I was like overdoing it. And my career and my longevity in my career is going to shrink so much if I'm going to push myself that hard. So if I can just don't let perfect be the enemy of good and just do a good job and show up, that's a lesson I had to learn really quick, then I can actually probably end up doing more for a lot longer because I have that energy to put behind it.
Absolutely. Don't let perfect stop you.
Mm-hmm.
Don't let it stop you. Just throw those rough ideas at the wall. You never know. You could be an intern having this crazy idea, and then a few years later, it's coming into fruition. So you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah. And to speak up. I did do that. So I would say the thing I'd continue to do, the thing I did before that I'd still keep doing, is I always spoke up when I had an opinion or I thought we were doing something weird or I felt like I had a way to do it differently and like I wasn't afraid of them saying no to me. So I think that would be the thing I did before, but I'm still going to keep doing, and just speak up and say, if I have an opinion, I'm going to say something.
Exactly. Speak up because your voice is bigger than you think.
Mm-hmm.
I am a huge advocate for that. And especially tying all this back into art and creativity, your voice and your artistic ability is so much more relevant than you think that it is. And even if nobody you might not think anybody hears you, or you might not think that your voice matters, but it does. And you just have to keep on believing in that and believing in yourself, especially when it comes to creative things, because creativity is subjective.
So subjective, yeah.
So subjective. You never know. Somebody might think it's a great idea and somebody might not. But I'm a huge advocate that anybody can be creative if they want it to be.
Oh, absolutely. You just have to find what you're creative at.
Exactly. And if you think it's cool and you're expressing yourself, there's nobody to say that is a bad idea. So keep on speaking up and voicing your opinion, because at the end of the day, it will be heard eventually by somebody. You will resonate with somebody. Somebody higher up might hear your idea, and it's all that it takes.
Exactly. And the lesson can even be taken to art itself, right? Don't let perfect be the enemy of good. How many times I stopped myself from drawing because I was afraid other people wouldn't like it. Or how often I prevented myself from showing people my art because I was I'm ashamed. But it's no, it doesn't have to be, Michelangelo and the Sistine Chapel. It's this is me on a page, and showing up that way and being okay with that, I think, is a big lesson too.
Absolutely. So what are you working on any art right now? What are you doing artistically right now?
I just finished a 30-day challenge of sketching for 15 minutes every day. Let me see. I can show you something. So I did a quick little series, and this is 5 of the sketches of the 30 that I did. I hope you can see that. But I sketched a flower dying every day. So every day is a progression of it wilting and slowly decaying. But it's a little morbid, but I was super into it.
No, that looks great. Really, really good. The shading, everything looks really great.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
What day was that? Was that day 30 or is that day 1?
No, that was day 6 through 10, 6 through 11. Yeah.
Can we see day 1 compared to the last day?
Sure. Okay. So this is day 1. I did this upside down woman thing. Mm-hmm. I think this is day 1 and day 2. This took me a couple days.
Yeah.
And then the very last day, let's see, what did I do on the last day? I think I just did a bunch of fruit on my last day, which isn't very exciting. Yeah, I did do just a bunch of fruit on my last day. On my last day, I did a bunch of different fruit that you can see. Like, this is a mango down here.
Mm-hmm.
This is a durian, if you've ever had a durian. Some raspberries, some oranges, and some strawberries. Again, just plain. What can I do in 15 minutes,
Yeah. No, that's great. Do you feel like that process helped you become a better artist?
Oh, absolutely. It's trying to think quick, get out of my own head. Mm-hmm. What can I accomplish in such a short amount of time? And then also just getting back to the basics. So there's days that aren't as exciting, that I was just practicing lines and different textures and circles and squares. And it's just, again, to muscle memory. How can I improve, and what can I do? And I love doing stuff like that outside of my day job, because I think it makes me show up at my job better, because I can, I'm expressing myself a different way. I'm using my brain a different way. And it just it's a good reset for me personally.
Yeah. It is always a good idea to have multiple creative outlets, I feel like, to work on. Because if you focus on one thing, you can, but you're going to get burned out really quick. Yeah. And the way to reset burnout is by stepping away, turning off your brain from all stimulation and just kind of going back to it. But I feel like it's so much more proactive. Like, I want to keep doing stuff. I don't want to just sit around doing nothing. So I would rather do one thing and then it's like, all right, to reset my brain on that one thing while still being proactive, I'm going to work on this other skill set or this other art form.
Totally.
So I still feel like I'm being proactive, and I still feel like I'm doing something and not just sitting on my couch,
watching Netflix.
Watching Netflix, which is important too in creativity. Yeah. You have to be able to relax and rest, but I would much rather spend my time building other skills or working on other creative outlets and doing things like that.
And you never know what job opportunities that could lead to. You never know. You never know what doors it could open.
Yeah, keep speaking up, whether what that art form is. But no, Kailee, it's been great. I know we're running a little low on time, but is there anything that you're working on that you want to plug? Do you have your art posted anywhere? Is there any projects that you're working on? Is there anything you want to plug to end the podcast?
I actually don't think so. I think actually one of the lessons I've learned, we keep talking about lessons we learned, is my art is for me, is what I ultimately learned. And so I don't post it anywhere. And that's a personal choice. That's not I'm ashamed to show it, but it's for me. It's my time to go in and to get in the zone and to let stuff go and to, be by myself. And so I tend not to share my art. I actually, will paint stuff for my friends, but very rarely. It's a very special thing for me to make something for you. And I do that very intentionally. So I tend not to share that stuff, and I tend to be a little bit more private in that way, both on social media and even, in my day-to-day relationships, because it's what fills me up. It's how I recharge. And so it's something that becomes really sacred. So, just thinking about the podcast and the purpose of what this is I guess what I would leave people with is don't worry so much about the career piece of it, but more just how can I find myself, and how can I keep showing up as myself, and how can I, feel good about who I am and who I show up to be, because then everything else is going to fall back into place. Like I said, the advice to myself, it's all going to work out. It's all going to happen. You're going to be fine. You don't have to try so hard. So as long as you're focusing on finding yourself and feeling good about who you are, then everything's going to fall into place.
What a great way to end. Great advice.
Yeah. And
for anybody who's listening that's an artist or designer, don't be afraid to keep things to yourself. That's totally okay I love that we're ending like that, because usually so many people are check out this that I'm working on, and to be the complete opposite is okay too. And I love that, the fact of the art of creating art just for yourself, to have that creative expression and to hold it so close. But that also makes gifts much better too, which I love at the same time.
Yeah.
Because it's just so much more sentimental. But thank you so much for being on, Kailee, and really appreciate your time. And I'm sure we'll see each other soon.
Yeah,
maybe next time I'll go to Colorado, and the van will probably be the next time.
Yeah, I would love that. We would love to host you. It was so good talking to you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Hey everybody, Austin Heisler here. Thank you so much for listening to Your Creative Roadmap podcast. If you want to follow anything that I'm doing, you can check me out at artbyost.com. Check out my fine art series that I'm working on this month, Characters of Horror. Unless you want to get spooked, it's kind of scary. Check that out. And if you want to follow me on my social media agency, check us out at 5to9detroit.com. If you want to do business with me and my social media agency, I hope you all have a great week, and I'll talk to you next time. Peace.